The second temple was built around 500 BC, about 516. And excuse me, and the glory never returned to the temple.
It never showed up in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it never. the glory, you know, the glory, the Spirit of God was in the first temple.
Right. This is the one in the wilderness, right?
Well, that's the tabernacle. You're talking about Solomon's temple?
Yes.
Okay.
But Solomon's temple got really debauched quickly too.
Yes.
Which I think goes to reveal what I think is interesting about this. Well, go ahead. I don't want to. I'm letting you.
Oh yeah, but I think it was there was the slaughtering of a pig or something in the first temple that where the Shekinah glory left. I think that was that might have been under the occupation of Antiochus Epiphanes at the time of the Maccabees. I think.
Okay.
Didn't Solomon put false gods in the temple too?
Yes, and I'm sure the glory was on its way out at that point.
It was already leaving there too. You know, so the thing about it is, I think when you look at this temple imagery, you know, I think that's, you know, an example of, like, when you think of a temple as like the nuclear structure of the nuclear kind of locus for the entire civilization's identity, right, is in that, right? And with that concept of a temple, it's always like a justification for violence against our enemies, right? So when you look at the text of talking about in the New Testament, going back to Mark, when it talks about is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, right? So that is a reference to the Isaiah passage, where Isaiah is talking about what the intention for God is for all nations to be brought into the knowledge of the Lord. But you have made it a den of robbers. Now, I looked it up while, you know, we were talking here, just to kind of verify my original point here, that it is fair to read robber, or the word for what is translated as robber, as revolutionary. Okay? Revolutionary. Similar to what Barabbas actually was. Insurrectionist is another word you can render from that. When you look at the Friedberg Greek lexicon, this word that they use, lestes, this Greek word, can mean robber, bandit, highwayman, one who seizes by violence, in contrast to a thief who uses stealth, politically insurrectionist, revolutionary, rebel, who favors the use of force. Whoa. So what's interesting here, right? Think about this, is that you talk about the loss of God's presence. Think about this for a second. People are using the sale of sacrifices to raise, these are revolutionaries raising funds to go beat the foreign occupiers of their land. And he's saying, no, you don't use this place to raise money for war against nations. This is the house for all nations to find God. You see that? So important, right? You see how that connects it back together. What were those other iterations of the temple? National, they were locusts, whether they were intended or not, they were locust points for nationalistic fervor in opposition violently to those nations that were in opposition to Israel, to the people of the temple. Even with Solomon. So much so, remember, whenever they're bringing false gods in, those false gods are always coming with retributive violence. That's the nature of false gods. They have retributive violence. They have vengeance. So Solomon pollutes it. You know, they make a temple. It loses the spirit of the Lord with, here we go again, whoring after gods. And what are those gods doing? Giving us favor and opposition violently to our opponents. Then we get to the second temple. Again, a locus for nationalistic fervor. And so much so that the time that Jesus is coming along, he's saying, wait a second. This was supposed to be a place for all nations. to have prayer for them. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations. But you have made it a den of revolutionaries who want to overthrow the other nations by force, using this place that was supposed to be a place of right relationship with God as a means of violent resistance, which is in direct opposition to his entire ministry.